with us soon. Thanks.
Welcome back. I'm Stacey Delicat, and that was Law and Crime host Caroline Polisi interviewing attorney Bradley Moss, who's also a national security expert, and talking about the Mueller investigation and whether President Trump will or will not cooperate. A little bit of some programming notes for you. Law and Crime will be streaming live on Monday, though it is the Martin Luther King Day. It is Martin Luther King Day, so we won't have any live trial streams. However, we will be covering a lot of hot legal topics and also looking ahead to the trials that will be continuing, including the one that we've been talking about all day, and that is the trial of Jason Riley King. He is the former Marine who is charged with murder in the deadly DUI wrong-way crash that killed two young University of California, San Diego medical students. Just to get you caught up on the case, let's show you a quick recap.
A night of partying and drinking ends in a massacre. Former Marine Jason Riley King is accused of driving towards oncoming traffic while drunk, causing the deaths of two young UCSD medical students and injuring three others. Now, the state is going after King, charging him with numerous crimes, including 2 counts of murder. The defense is not taking this lying down. They've argued that King has been seriously overcharged and that he's only guilty of manslaughter and DUI. King faces a prison term of 30 years to life plus 14 years if...
Again, the prosecution will continue its case in the trial of Jason Riley King next Tuesday. One of the interesting things we have been talking about, and I'm joined here by Julie Rendelman, Law and Crime trial analyst and criminal defense attorney. One of the interesting things we've been talking about is why are prosecutors bringing second-degree murder charges against King as opposed to just manslaughter charges, which he has admitted to driving drunk. He has admitted that he was way too wasted to be behind the wheel when he got on the highway going the wrong way and plowed into the Prius with these med students in it. But one of the things we haven't touched on is the implications that this case has already had in parts of California, in San Diego, where this happened. And that is that after this happened, state legislators passed a law that said all bartenders must be trained on when to stop patrons from drinking too much or on talking to them about drunk driving even. I mean, they really use this case to push through this law.
Yeah, no, look, we talk about whether, certain cases have impacts, and it's funny that we have this case that not a lot of people know about, and it's had such an impact that, it's going to kind of change the way bars are run. It's probably something that should have been in effect for a while because, the bartender's in the best position to know how much the individual that he's serving has drank. So, it's simply kind of enforcing that of which should be happening anyway, which is making sure that, the bartenders are cognizant of what they're serving and being held responsible to a degree.
Yeah, I mean, some would say, well, the bartender's job is to serve the clients, work the cash register, get things cleaned up. Is it really their job to watch every customer that comes in? How's the bartender to know if they've already had 4 drinks before coming in? Does this put an unnecessary, too much burden on the bartenders?
I think that's a great point, and time will tell. No one's saying that Jason King is not responsible for his actions. The question is, are there other people that helped it along? And that's kind of the question people ask in many situations when you have an individual that's clearly intoxicated and a bartender completely, continues to serve them. Not just criminal liability we talk about, but more civil liability. And so, I think there, a lot of people have different views, but I do think, look, I think you're right. When you have a bartender that's working with, 50 people at the bar, and they're not able to even keep track of what they're doing, it's difficult. But look, I think, unfortunately, these are the things that happen, and maybe changing this may impact kind of how someone walks out of the door of a bar.
Yeah, and I want to correct something I said earlier. This is a state law. It was signed by Governor Jerry Brown last year. But, a question that I have is, would a law like this have made a difference in the Jason King case? Because we have evidence that people in the bar, perhaps people who worked at the bar and also friends of his, said, don't get behind the wheel. And he still said, I'm fine, and did. So if they had had this training, you know, I guess we'll never know, but
Right.
it's not to say that this would have definitely prevented a horrendous crash like
I
this
don't
one.
know that it would have, and I think we'd be foolish to think that, you know, just because this law, if this law had been in effect, that these events wouldn't have transpired. By the way, he could have gone to another place and drank, or he could have drank outside, whatever it was. I mean, you know, this is what happened. The question is whether or not the new law will have an impact potentially, not on this case, but on any future cases that happen. And I hate to say time will tell, but that really is what it is.
Yeah, you know, one of the lawmakers who crafted the law said the law will mean fewer drunk drivers on the road, which will reduce the risk of future tragedies. And also some of the classmates of the victims who were killed and injured in this crash worked with the state legislators to come up with this legislation and pass it. And now under this law, there is mandatory training for all bartenders. I want to go back to another part in the trial that we heard this week, and that is the bar manager where Jason King had been drinking and had been admittedly drinking too much before he got in his truck. This bar manager was on the stand for some time talking about what he remembered of that night. Let's go ahead and play the